Hello and welcome to The Long Play, where we listen to some of the world's greatest albums. It's a bit like a book club, but there are no books. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank
Good.
you.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, it is.
It feels like a little while since we recorded. But then also, I mean, we're recording this episode quite early in the month.
Yeah. So not even a full month, but you've just been packing stuff in. That's what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, and lots of listening to Taylor Swift.
Yes. So why don't you just give us a quick recap of what we've been listening to this month?
Yeah, so we've been listening to 1989 by Taylor Swift, which was her 5th studio album. Am I right, Tom?
I think so,
yeah. Released in 2014, and it marked her kind of full-time transition from a country star to a pop star, really. This was the album that she said really kind of put that flag in the ground that she was going to
apart from her country roots.
And embrace pop.
And she does it.
And she does it. She does it with aplomb.
Yeah. So with I know we talked about our preconceptions and what we were sort of expecting.
Yeah.
Flaggers is with us.
Yes.
Flanagan, the pod dog.
So if you hear some barking in the background, that's the pod dog.
Yes. So we talked about our preconceptions, about what we were thinking about walking into talking about Taylor Swift. What were your expectations met, or were they exceeded, or?
They were exceeded. So they were exceeded. I think I always knew that there was more to Taylor Swift than just throwaway pop. I kind of got that, but I'd never taken the time to understand it fully and to really kind of embrace it. So I might even say dismissive of Taylor Swift's music prior to listening to it, in that it just didn't interest me.
Which I don't think, and I don't want to be wrong in saying this, but I don't think is an unusual thing for people to feel.
Yeah.
I think people are quite cynical about her music and feel like they can be, if they think that they're,
I think when any artists kind of target audience or big audiences like teens, then we kind of grow out of pop music a bit, don't we?
Sure.
And I felt like I'd grown out of pop music, and therefore it wasn't targeted at me, so therefore I didn't really need to listen to it.
Sure.
And that's why I was really pleased that we had this opportunity to understand it a bit more. And I know there's a few. I mean, this album's on the Rolling Stones top 500 albums of all time. I know.
Do you know where it charted on that?
Oh, like in the 300s. It's it's quite low down, but still.
Of all the albums that were released ever, I mean, it's still pretty good.
And so it's critically acclaimed, and I know that it's kind of well respected. So I kind of intrinsically knew that there was good stuff to uncover here, but I just never bothered because it really wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And that's the power of the long play. That's what we wanted, is to kind of broaden our kind of musical journey and to really dive into these classic albums and to really spend some time with the album. So I've been listening to it non-stop and enjoying it.
Yes, same here. I feel like I've stuck myself twice in the sense that I went on holiday for a week. So, I mean, forgive me, but I didn't do much listening whilst I was on holiday.
So it feels like a perfect Algarve listening album.
It's difficult when you're chasing kids and stuff to say, please stop running towards the pool. I want to listen to Taylor Swift. And now we're recording it early. So, but second to that is I also feel like I've listened to it maybe even more than I did the other ones. We were talking just before we sat down to record. It just feels like a very easy album to have on in the car.
Yeah.
My wife wasn't as keen on Bob Dylan. So that wasn't as universally enjoyed, shall we say. But this has been much easier to
Surely
just have on.
Shake It Off was a staple of the kids' disco on holiday.
Well, it wasn't, because it was all typical kids' disco songs as opposed to...
You're doing the Okie Kokie.
2014 bangers. I think it did come on there one night, Okie Kokie, actually. But yes.
I think obviously I was a teenager in the 80s, and this absolutely embraces that kind of electronic pop sound of the 80s. There's so
big
much
drums, big
so
synths.
much influence here that it just it just took me back to that time, and music that I didn't necessarily own or go and see, but just kind of loved. And if it comes on now, like, I don't know, Thompson Twins or Eurythmics or, Shake It Off reminds me of Footloose. All of those songs, which, as I say, I wasn't saying I was a fan of them when I was a teenager, but they just feel like great songs that I love. And this just took me back there. And it wasn't just necessarily nostalgia. I just felt the kind of joy of those pop songs. And I know, there's Fine Young Cannibals influence here, Madonna, all of that. And I felt like it was a really cohesive album.
Yes, sonically, certainly.
Yeah.
And in content
theme as well. But definitely, I'm talking about sonically. Yeah,
I watched a bit of your some of the links that you put in for the mid-month missives.
Yeah,
and I was watching her talking about the making of the album, and actually the making of the albums before. I don't know, it was something to do with the Grammys, but I wonder if it was like a.
I think it's like a Grammy-based documentary, so she'd won a Grammy for it, and
fine.
Yeah.
But that was really interesting, and she talked about the sort of the making of this album and wanting it to be a sort of really sonically cohesive piece of work. Because I think she said Red was a bit more disparate in the styles. I actually haven't listened to Red. I've listened to obviously a couple of the singles off it, but
yeah. So I and watching all of that kind of background and the interviews with her, again, it just shows what a great artist she is.
Yes. I
absolutely loved. I just could listen to her talking about the making of music.
Yes,
good.
Yeah, she talks about it so well, and she talks about it with such, joy and excitement. About, I always find that, as a songwriter, I mean, I've had my own journey with writing music, and it's a very personal experience, and I did fall out of love with it for a while. And I'm amazed at her own sort of verve and tenacity to keep on going and keep on finding new and exciting things, especially when you've had God knows how many number ones.
Yeah,
You always, I guess there's a part of you that's fear that you're going to be compared to your previous work.
Yeah.
Maybe she's done it enough that she kind of thinks that she's always got more in the tank.
Yeah, that ability to keep writing. I mean, she's such a great songwriter. She really is. And that ability to keep writing hits. There's so many, going back to the 80s again, if you kind of name a couple of bands from the 80s, you can probably name their one song. There's loads of people just have maybe just one great song in them.
An era of
and when you look at someone like Taylor Swift, she's got a locker full. And I really respect that in any songwriter, the big songwriters.
I with the heat that we've had in the UK the last week, I couldn't sleep one morning, and I got up early and came down, and I was just trying to find something to do, and then found the Folklore Sessions on Disney Plus, and it's interspliced with her talking about each song and talking. I know that's not what we're listening to, but it was such a great showcase of her, just what she can do just with her and a guitar and a couple of other people playing either guitars or piano. Like, it's really pared back, and that. It's just brilliant. It's really, really good.
I mean, I think to balance that, I just don't find her music or this music as interesting as other music that we've listened to. And, I don't feel like whilst I absolutely appreciate it and understand why people love it and respect them for loving it, it's so great. I just don't really feel like it's for me. I feel like I have almost grown out of pop music, and I'm okay with that. And I find other music more interesting. And I noticed that I'd listened to 1989, and then it finished, and then I put on an Erykah Badu track. I was like, oh, this is so great.
Yeah,
this is me.
That is your genre, though.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think that's just specifically it. There's something about taste, so I completely understand that quality and taste are actually different things. And this is a high quality album written by a high quality songwriter, but my taste lies elsewhere.
Sure.
And that's fine.
That's allowed.
Yeah. But having said that, I loved listening to it.
Yeah.
And I think you said earlier to me that, you know, there's some tracks you don't like. I felt like it was consistently good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some tracks I like more than others, but
Sure.
I don't feel like...
Yeah, there wasn't any, I mean, to go back to our favourite Jack of Hearts track from the Bob Dylan album.
Yeah.
It's not like when I first heard that, which I know I came round and then, you know, really started to enjoy it by the end. But when I first heard it, I was just like, why did we say no skipping, no shuffling?
Yeah. I think maybe there's nothing difficult on this album.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that maybe that's part of, you know, that the kind of more interesting things are sometimes more difficult to get into. They're not as easily accessible.
Yeah.
Everything on this album is accessible and readily available, and people are going to love it almost immediately. And there's something for me in just kind of working through some of that sometimes.
Well, like one of the tracks that I, you know, didn't enjoy as much is Out of the Woods, which was the single when she did Taylor's version.
Yeah.
Which I kind of, I mean, I think it's hard because when she released it the first time, they did absolutely nail it with all the singles. All the singles do feel like they're head and shoulders above the rest of the tracks on the album. I think. But yes, I wasn't as bothered about that one. And yeah, when I say I'm not as bothered, it certainly didn't feel like I was like, this is not for me, please. I'm saying, it doesn't feel like the Jack of
you still
Hearts.
sing along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was a bit like, some of them felt a bit easy or a bit, you know, lyrically not really what I was. Well, okay, so let's start. Let's go to the beginning.
Yeah. Welcome to New York.
Yeah. Well, like when I first heard this, I was like, lyrically, it's a bit meh, you know, like it didn't really excite me. But with the feels that I get from it, where we talk about like Scandi pop and like Robin and stuff like that, across the whole of this album, there's arpeggiated bass. And I love arpeggiated bass. It's so great. I'm a big fan. And yeah, it was giving me all those kind of feels. I was getting a tiny bit of Last Night on Earth, Noah and the Whale from that sort of opening synth line.
Yeah.
It was giving me a bit of that as well. And it was all around the same sort of time. Like across this whole album, there's lots of sort of feels that you can kind of pull from lots of kind of things that were going on at about the same sort of time musically.
I mean, I think this is just a great opener actually, because she's
really sets the scene.
Setting the scene. She's moved to New York. She's wants to make a pop album. She feels like she's kind of big enough and old enough now to embrace New York and her pop career. And that's what she's saying here. And I think in kind of setting out her stall in a relatively simple kind of pop song, I think that's a great way to start. It feels like she's absolutely she's great at world building. I think Taylor Swift, she builds these kind of worlds, and this is kind of the start of the album, and I think it works really well.
Yes,
I think as a standalone single on its own. I'm kind of take it or leave it, but putting that at the start of this album,
it did grow on me actually. I think when it's paired with Blank Space, which comes up next, all of a sudden I was just like, lyrically, it just feels like, really
it's kind of
disparate.
Throwaway almost.
The sort of the completeness of what she's writing about on track 2. Doesn't feel like what she's writing about in track 1. That definitely feels like a bit more of a like, okay, let's set the scene. Let's do big sort of pop tune. Big vocals.
Yes, well, as I say, I just felt like it was the perfect way to set the scene for the album.
And how many Paul Smiths?
And therefore, I'm giving it a 7, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I gave it a 6, but maybe that's just sort of indicative of the rest of my marking. But I'm going to follow you and chalk it up to a 7.
Oh yeah,
I'm scribbling it out, Paul.
Okay, great. Well, the listeners will be excited.
Blank Space.
Blank Space. I think this is one of the best pop songs ever.
Yeah,
I fundamentally just think it's an amazing song. Yeah.
I think when somebody that I met once was saying whose work I really respect. He said if you can look at all of your work with a bit of a smile and do it and make something fun,
Yeah.
it just immediately makes it so much more approachable.
Yeah.
And I think she's really done that here.
Yeah.
It's similar to that thing where I said like the secret ingredient is heart.
Yeah.
I think the other secret ingredient is being able to,
like a sense of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just immediately levels the playing field as far as accessibility is concerned. And people can just find their own way in there by enjoying themselves instead of having to go, how do I find myself to, interface with this in the right way?
Yeah. I agree. And the lyrics are just funny, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And actually, I was thinking about this. I'm a big hip hop fan. And that kind of lyric, we're young and restless, we'll take this way too far, it'll leave you breathless or with a nasty scar. I mean, it's brilliant. And if that was in a hip hop track, I'd be, loving it. It really felt like her turn of phrase in this song is, clever, funny, but also the music.
Yeah, lots of really great
is,
turnaround phrases like, I'm a nightmare dressed like a daydream.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. This for me was my favourite track on the album, I think.
Yeah.
And when I was watching her live show from the Eras tour, that particular song really stood out as well for the production and what they were doing. It's clear that she obviously enjoys this track as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I gave it an 8.
Yeah. Well, I gave it a 9.
Great.
Yeah, I think there are 2 9s for me on this album.
Is there? I don't think I went anything higher than an 8.
Now,
and
I don't think my scoring is going to be consistent across this album compared to maybe some of the other albums.
But that's the point, right?
Yeah, I know it's the point. But I felt like, if I'm going to say, and I think this is just one of my favorite ever pop songs, surely it has to be a 9, actually. I feel like this is a song that in 10, 15 years' time, it'll come on the radio and I'll be like, this is so great,
Yeah.
So maybe, I'm comfortable with giving it a 9.
I'm changing my score as well to a 9.
Oh, I'm so influential today.
Well, you are. But then I look at the other ones and the other ones that I've given 8s, and I'm like, actually, this does feel like I like this just that tiny bit more than the other ones. So, go on then.
Yeah.
I'm
great.
I'm happy with that. Style.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, there's so many great pop tunes on this album. This just reminds me of 80s Madonna, actually.
Yeah, right.
I felt like Madonna influences here, and good Madonna influences.
Yes, and without wanting to say anything too obvious, it really oozes style. Like it's got.
Yeah.
Again, we have arpeggiated bass, which I'm really enjoy, and it's sidechained so heavily, so it uses to get into the musical weeds, the production weeds. It uses a compressor, which so we've got compressors on our vocals here to just sort of make sure that everything sort of stays sort of on the same level.
Yeah.
And what it does is you connect that to your kick drum. And so when the compressor receives a signal, it squashes down. You do that with your arpeggiated bass. So when the kick drum comes in, it starts moving like this. So it goes and has movement with it, and you can really hear it in the chorus of this. It's really pumping, is what they'd call it. But it's very cool.
Well, so one of my notes says really clever production. I'm just not sure how to talk about it. So thanks for talking about it.
I mean, I don't know if I've said it in the most eloquent way.
Yeah, but you've said it in a more eloquent way than I could do.
I mean, sidechaining is quite a sort of. They've made it easier now in modern music making software.
Yeah.
It's relatively easy to sidechain stuff, but it used to be a bit more confusing. And when I was first understanding about it, it was it took me absolutely ages to get my head around it. So I mean, I hope that that's done a tiny bit of explaining what that does. But it uses you can sidechain it to anything, but quite often you'll sidechain your kick drum to the bass. It's more so that as well, because obviously the bass and the kick drum take up similar frequencies.
Yeah.
You'll use it as well, even more subtly than it's used here, to create space so that the kick drum will come through.
Right. Yeah.
And that's sidechaining.
There we go. So, clever production as far as I was concerned.
I really like it. That when I said it really uses style. It's the sort of I really like tracks that feel like this, a bit more dark, bit more sort of, where it's just so much about the groove.
Yeah.
And yeah, that really sort of really prominent arpeggiated bass that's just really sort of anchoring the whole thing.
Yeah.
And with a four on the floor kick, yeah, I mean, I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Single after single. Going from those two, Blank Space, and then straight into Style. So good.
Yeah.
I gave it an 8.
I did too.
Yeah. It's one of the strongest tracks on the album, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, this is, so when we talked about the intro and when we were talking in the intro and I talked about listening to Ryan Adams, this is one of the ones that I think of from his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those people who didn't listen maybe to the intro episode of this album, Ryan Adams did a track-by-track cover album of 1989. So
yeah, and it's really good, so I'd recommend going and listen to that.
Yeah.
He's coming to York soon.
Is he? Ah, very good. And he also did a track-by-track cover of Bob Dylan's Blood on the Track. So it's 2 out of the 4 albums we've listened to.
Has he done any others? Maybe we can review them too.
Yeah, I think he has done another, but I can't remember which one it is.
It's an unusual choice.
Yeah.
To just go, right, well, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
But I quite like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. No, it's a good album. Out of the Woods.
Out of the Woods. So I know that you said just now that this is not necessarily one of your favourites. And in my notes, it says, not so keen on this song.
Yeah.
So whilst I will repeat my kind of earlier comment that I don't think there's a weak track on it.
Yeah.
I like this one a little bit less. I think the chorus is just a bit repetitive for me. Yeah. Yeah.
There's some, I know a very sort of staple trope in pop music is to have a repetitive chorus that people will sing along to. That's...
Yeah.
But here, quite often you have in pop music where it's doing that and it doesn't feel like it's really, sort of, taking you all the way there and showing you it and making you do it. It just sort of happens quite naturally. Whereas in this one, I don't know if it's maybe the production as well, but it just feels like it is a bit too repetitive.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's just happening. Because I don't think the melody of the chorus or the chorus doesn't feel catchy enough to almost sing. It almost just feels catchy enough that I've got it stuck in my head, but I don't want to kind of...
Yeah.
It feels quite low in her register as well, her singing register, so it doesn't feel like she's really giving it the...
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sort of splitting hairs about why I don't think I like it and maybe trying to give it too much credence, but it's just not my favourite on the record.
Yeah. Again, I love that line. You took a Polaroid of us, then discovered the rest of the world was black and white, but we were in screaming colour. Yeah. So she can write a lyric.
Yeah.
And so
shame she didn't write any more for that chorus.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I just felt let down by the chorus a bit because actually I think the verses, everything just worked quite well.
And maybe that shines a light in pop music that you're sort of held account by the choruses, like they're really important in pop music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave it a rather harsh 4.
Ooh. I went 6.
6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've it felt like I just wasn't.
Yeah.
I just wrote not a fan of this one.
Well, yeah. So
then it was the single.
Yeah, of Taylor's version.
Taylor's version, which is, considering our comments here. I know we're not the sort of sages on it all, but it's interesting that then that was chosen to be.
Yeah.
I guess there's probably a conflict of, well, not interest, but in the sense that she couldn't re-choose the singles that had been done before, or maybe it's just bad marketing, and you want to, those songs are already going to get lots of play and airtime and stuff.
Have you listened to Taylor's version alongside this?
Actually.
No. So
I think you said though that it's pretty hard to discern the differences.
For me, you might well discern. So I've read a couple of reviews or seen a couple of reviews that have said that there are bits of it that aren't as well produced.
Okay.
It's obviously really difficult to do a like for like production.
But she's probably not
re-record.
trying to do that as well, though, right?
I feel like she is trying to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a deluxe version. There's all sorts of kind of other features, but the actual song, she's trying to do a like for like.
Okay.
And just missing it on some, I understand. Sure. However, listening to it kind of briefly, not side by side, probably on my car radio, you can't, I can't tell.
To reclaim her masters, it was more of a sort of exercise in doing that than a sort of.
And so the kind of interest for for her fans is probably all the other bits that go with it.
Sure, okay.
It wasn't a kind of remix of
speak to somebody who understands that end of the industry better than I, and because I'd be interested to know how that means that she retains her masters.
Yeah.
Because in my understanding of ownership rights, I would have thought that she was essentially doing a cover of one of her own songs.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I don't understand how that would then switch. So I need to speak to somebody about that and understand it a bit better because, I'm just curious.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yes, then all you had to do was stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was another one that was a bit of a miss for me.
I like the Annie Lennox kind of style of stay, that little kind of I don't know what it is, just that recurring theme.
Yeah.
So production wise, I think that saves the song almost.
Yeah.
And it does sound like Annie Lennox. And it does sound a little bit Eurythmics-y. So I like that bit. But yeah, it wasn't. It's certainly not one of the strongest tracks on the album.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's almost. I mean, it's perhaps harsh to say, but saved by a gimmick.
Sure. Okay.
That kind of little sting of stay.
Yeah,
just works really nicely. And maybe it's not a gimmick. That's just good production and songwriting.
Yeah,
it's that makes it interesting. Hook, isn't it? The hook. Yeah, that little kind of created it.
Yeah, that little sort of. It's not a sample, but that kind of thing where it's been produced in a certain way and it's so standalone.
Yeah.
But it was about here as well that I sort of started to notice some Swiftisms, I'll call it, like things that she will quite often do exactly the same little vocal run when she's ad-libbing stuff at the end of a song.
Right.
I won't sing it for you.
Come on, Tom.
But when you listen, see if you can spot any that are the same as she's done before. She's got a particular. She does it in "Shake It Off." I think she does it in this. And yeah, when I heard it, I was like, oh, I can really hear her doing that particular melodic line.
Yeah.
In loads of things.
Yeah.
And as well, the way that she tumbles into oh no, I'm not going to sing that right. Anyway, she does a thing where she tumbles the lyrics into one, and instead of having a comma at the end of a line, she lets it run into almost the next line, which does also feel like a bit of a thing that she likes to do.
Uh-huh.
And I did enjoy that.
Yep.
5.
It's 6 for me again. It's kind of I think that's, as I say, the lowest score on the album, but and I'd happily listen to it again, but it's not the strongest.
Yeah, I marked things down if they felt. I mean, twee feels like a really sort of not fair word to use because I don't really like it. But for things that just felt like I was far more deep into the sort of more groovy, crunchy sort of. I mean, I say that Blank Space was my favorite track on the album, but I think it does that with such swagger.
Yes,
and it's sort of a thing in its own right.
Absolutely is. Yeah.
It's got bags of punch and sass,
Yeah.
But the tracks like Bad Blood and Style, I know they're all the singles, but they really did knock it out the park with their choices for the singles the first time round. So Shake It Off.
Shake It Off. This is the one that reminds me of Footloose, actually. I don't know why, but that kind of joyful, upbeat, put it on at a wedding, everybody's going to dance to it sort of song. It sums up the album really for me. You know, that she's really kind of nailing it here as a pop star.
Yeah.
And I guess when it absolutely. This is the song that reminded me of what it felt like to love songs as a teenager and to kind of, be at the disco and hear a song come on and think, this is great.
She's having lots of fun again here, isn't she?
Yeah, it's absolutely fun. It's joyful, and I think we've spoken again in the past about, whether something is kind of cool or, hopeful or, this kind of joyfulness coming through this is really strong.
Yeah, I marked it down a point for it single-handedly ripping through my Spotify Wrapped. Thanks to my kids loving the Sing soundtrack. So sorry, Taylor, but it's Reese Witherspoon singing that.
There definitely needs to be some sort of filter on your Spotify Wrapped for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Spotify.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. But yeah, there's also a really interesting thing that happens musically in this, with every single chord is pushed, which is a really unusual. You can barely tell that it's happening. Hang on, I'll show you here if it'll let me. Oh. Does it on every single one, which is. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Which is really unusual.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll do like a little so that you don't have to hear it.
Yeah.
There's a really unusual thing that happens here with the pushed chords, which is a really bold choice. And I was having a little play along and trying to figure out why I kept on missing it, and then realised that was happening every single time. And yeah, it's a real choice, but I think it probably does so much for making it feel like you're always ahead of. It's got such a sort of anticipatory feel. Like you feel like it's constantly sort of rising, and it's got lots of excitement about it. And the energy is really high. It's good.
I saw on that documentary that she had to overcome her fear of brass for this song. She just Now I feel like the brass isn't that prominent here. There's definitely,
but now I can hear it. Now you said that,
exactly.
I'm like, it actually has got loads of brass in it. But
but
she had a fear of brass.
Yeah,
okay.
She didn't like it basically, and said she didn't want it. And Max Martin, I think maybe it was him who persuaded her to have this. And she said that she struggled to write the chorus. She felt like the chorus didn't work, and then she managed to come up with the lines. And absolutely, it's a hit, isn't it? So
yeah.
7. 7 for me too. I just like how at age 25 you can have this kind of much resilience and self-awareness to cope with such like stardom.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
Great. And now we will go to the segment where I talk about what happened in that year.
We're all excited for it, Tom.
In 2014, Barack Obama was president of the United States. Breaking Bad won an Emmy.
Yeah.
The Tour de France set off from Leeds, which is only really sort of bears interest for us because we're near there.
Well, it came past my house in York.
Did it?
It was very exciting.
Was it?
Yeah.
How many people go off in the Tour de France?
I don't know. Probably a couple of hundred, maybe.
I feel like this is a fact for now, though, that isn't the person who's just won it the first person to win back-to-back.
Oh, right.
Titles this century? Maybe centuries, but that sounds like quite a long time.
You're stretching our cycling knowledge here, Tom.
Well, I have none apart from the fact they've got wheels and handlebars. And a pedal, I hear. Kate Bush was the first female artist to have 8 albums in the UK album charts at the same time.
Wow.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, so they must have all of her back catalogue must have been released to streaming or something at that point.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that felt topical for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then musically, St. Vincent released St. Vincent.
Great.
Tycho, which I would keep on telling Paul he needs to
Yep.
take for a spin, released Awake, which is a favourite of mine. And Ed Sheeran released X. And we were saying that actually it's interesting that these two albums, X and 1989, were released at around, like, you can really hear, and you know, it's well reported how much songwriting they do together, and you know that there's a lot of cross-pollination in, you know, songwriting and, you know, sharing of ideas and stuff like that. And you can see that at both their points in their career that it probably makes a lot of sense that they became friends and, you know, were on the rise together.
Yeah.
Who won the Premier League?
I mean, Man U in 2014.
Ding.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was annoying was when
It's quite easy, isn't it? The Man U were pretty dominant around.
I think that might have been the last one they won.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think they've won it since.
Yeah.
So who won the FA Cup?
Oh, I mean, is it Chelsea?
Nope.
No, because I felt like you're trying to steer me down the.
Nah.
Arsenal.
Yeah, Arsenal. Well done.
Great. Well, maybe we need a little kind of sting for your little interruption at
a new sting
as we flip the record.
All right. Well, when I've got
you're the man.
I'll write one.
I won't. So there's only one of us who's going to be writing any music for this podcast. So
where are we now? We're at
I Wish You Would.
I Wish You Would.
I Wish You Would. So this started out as a Fine Young Cannibals drum sample.
I was going to say I really like the big drums.
Yeah, so they didn't end up using the sample, but that's what inspired the track.
Okay.
What was the Fine Young Cannibals track? Don't recall off the top of my head. But yes, that's the inspiration. And again, that 80s music, 80s electronic music coming through strongly.
Yeah.
This feels like in fact, it feels like a 80s movie track. I can imagine it on like St. Elmo's Fire or Pretty in Pink or one of those. It felt like a big American 80s film soundtrack song.
There's a synth squeak in it that I don't care for.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That just sort of keeps on happening.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a sort of theme across the whole track, and I'm just not in.
Oh, maybe you need to listen to Taylor's version and see if that's still there.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Maybe I shall.
See if you like it more.
6.
7 for me.
Yeah.
I really liked it. But yeah.
It's interesting that we're mostly just sort of you're 1 point above mine.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting into a sort of zone of wanting to change some of those. But yes. Bad Blood.
Bad Blood.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I'm less keen on it. I like the Kendrick mix that was released as a single.
Cool. Yeah, I like Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. And that kind of, some of the reviews actually say that it's kind of quite hip hop influenced and Beastie Boys influenced. And I just couldn't get it. But I guess, put Kendrick on, there must be some hip hop.
I prefer it when it's quite a steady tune, like its tempo.
Yeah.
And I preferred it. So at the beginning, she does the chorus, doesn't she, a cappella with the drums.
Yeah.
And I prefer it when all the instrumentation's in. It just feels a bit like there's a bit too much space in there. I mean, this is only my sort of view on it, but I guess that's what all this is. Yeah, and I preferred it when it was all together. So there was kind of bookended by bits that I wasn't as fussed about, but it's still really good, and I do like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it just felt like a direct copy of, like, there's one segment that just sounds like Natasha Bedingfield's These Words.
Oh, yeah, right.
Just exactly the same, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, right.
Although I did kind of Google that, because I thought, surely she's paid Natasha Bedingfield for this. And no, there's no record of it. I mean, you just get a couple of Reddit forums where people are, commenting that it sounds like These Words, but that's what it felt like to me.
Well, I gave it an 8.
All right, so I gave it a 7. As I say, a little less keen on it. I can't really explain why.
Now tell me that Wildest Dreams doesn't sound like Lana Del Rey.
Yeah. I really like this track. This was my
I kind of do as well.
top track.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
but certainly at the start. I think as I've reflected more, Blank Space was obviously accessible, obviously understood.
Yeah.
But the more I listened as the month went on, I think, I like Wildest Dreams. I absolutely do. But it was the thing that I first kind of got.
Yeah.
Yeah, and went back to a few times.
Yeah, I sort of did it in reverse, actually. I think I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I think because initially, it really did feel like she was almost just taking off Lana Del Rey.
Yeah, one of my notes is it feels like the 80s pop theme is toned down. It's kind of removed, and Lana Del Rey is obviously not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real departure tonally.
Yeah.
And, the way she's delivering the vocal, it changes in the chorus a bit, like she opens up a bit more, but the verse is so low in her register and almost spoken in some parts.
Yeah.
And the production as well, like I'm trying to think what instrument it is now. But that's sort of like, moving synth, or Mellotron or whatever it is. I know that they use Mellotron on this album, but whether that's it, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a bit of a change from the rest of it, but I do like it. I gave it a 7.
Yeah, I gave it an 8, so it's right up there for me. And
I've written, I like it actually.
Well, people come here for those insights, Tom. And Abby, my partner, very keen on the track because that is the Bridgeton track that was used at Castle Howard when they were recording there. Bridgeton have this thing of taking modern pop songs and turning them into kind of classical. Great. And Wildest Dreams is a big one for the Castle Howard episode.
Yeah, great. Yeah, 7.
8 for me.
Magic. And then the next one is a bit falling back into the kind of not that fond of.
How You Get the Girl.
Yeah, it kind of does that twee thing again, and I'm a bit like, well, it's all a bit sugary.
I understand what you mean, but I really like the concept. I really like that kind of how it's written.
Yeah.
That kind of really simple storytelling, and I don't really understand fully why I feel like that, because it maybe is a little bit twee or like, but I just think it kind of lands for me.
Yeah.
And so again, it's relatively simple, and it feels like it could be an 80s teen movie again.
Yeah.
But I like the concept. I think it's a great title for a pop song. And
is this the first one that we've heard that's like really acoustic guitar led? I'm trying to sort of look back through and go, did that happen in that? But certainly, it definitely feels like it feels to me like it's a hark back to her previous work.
Yeah, okay.
It feels a bit more like the sort of love story era.
Yeah,
a bit.
Maybe it feels to me like she started with the title, and then whereas a lot of and maybe this isn't true at all, but a lot of her writing obviously comes from the kind of she hears the melody, or the kind of song comes to her first. Mm-hmm. This feels like it's a concept the other way around.
Yeah, right.
That may well be me just projecting it, but it is a clever kind of little conceit that she starts with.
Yeah. Go on then. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 7.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Disparate in our thinkings there.
Yeah.
I gave it a 4. Just
4.
Well, I didn't like it any more than I liked Out of the Woods.
Yeah, fair enough, Tom.
So I just wasn't really vibing on it.
Yeah.
I can't read my handwriting for the next one.
This Love.
Yeah. I mean, I can read This Love, but the rest of it I can't. I've written, I like the feel of the production.
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
more
again-
arpeggiated bass.
Yeah, again, it's the 80s. We're solely in there. This wasn't high up on my list. It felt like every time this came on, I was like, oh, I'd forgotten this song exists.
I kind of felt like that about the whole of this. After we got past Bad Blood,
Yeah.
it kind of lost me for sort of 3 tracks.
I put a note that says, does the album drop off a bit towards the end? Now, I don't know whether that's true when you look at it song by song, but maybe because it's relatively coherent as an album.
Yeah.
Maybe just my interest waned towards the end of the album.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I definitely, I mean, as we're always finding, you always find that you become more familiar with the beginning of an album because you never start at the end and listen backwards.
Yeah.
And yes, I think I also was feeling a similar sense of sort of, disinterest at this sort of point. I was a bit like, I mean, you're not going to put your best song 11th, are you? Or 10th, whatever track we're on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I did feel a similar feeling.
Yeah.
But of the ones which I felt a bit apathetic towards, this was higher than those.
Okay.
I liked this more than I liked How You Get the Girl.
Mm-hmm. I liked it a little bit less, so I gave it a 6.
I gave it a 6. But yeah, I did like the production, and it's got art bass, so it's it's ticking some of the boxes.
Those boxes for you. Yeah.
I Know Places.
Yes.
This is a weird one.
Yeah. Yeah.
A bit of an outlier again.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I got loads of Linkin Park feels. I think it's the very tape beladen piano at the beginning, and then the very fast drums just really sound like Linkin Park to me. What was that big Linkin Park track? Is it Numb?
Yeah,
with the tape piano at the beginning, it had similar sort of feel. And it's a bit of a funny one. I quite liked the chorus, but yeah, it's a bit of an anomaly on the record.
Yeah, again, it's an anomaly in the sense of this album, but actually the album just all holds together really well. I don't think this adds, this is so far removed or isn't that coherent with the album, but it is a bit of an anomaly. You're right. But I really like this track. Also, with the deluxe version of the original release, she released her voice memos, and then you can still find them on YouTube. They were in the mid-month missives. And the voice memo for this is great. I really love listening to people describe how they came up with a song.
Yeah.
The kind of origins of a song, and her talking about this was great to hear. So they're little voice
if you like
memos.
that stuff, good podcast is to Song Exploder.
Yes, I love Song Exploder.
It's really good for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And doing great things there.
Yeah.
But yes, I kept on, every time this track came on, I was like into the vibe, and then every single time the lyric, they are the hunters, we are the foxes, just kind of really sort of stuck out, and I was like, It just really, I don't know why, like even thinking about it now, it just kept on sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It felt a bit weird.
Yeah, the times when lyrics just don't land with you. So I that kind of big line from Bad Blood, Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes. I liked it like once, and then after that, it's like, it's a bit, don't know, on the nose. It's a clever line as well, but
it's funny, isn't it? Like that could be in any number of things. It could be, the way, a cadence falls in the music that makes you feel a certain way, that's kind of giving you that feel in that moment, but it's the lyric that you hear that makes you go, well, I don't really like that.
Yeah.
It could be to do with the meter and the rhythm of the way that the lyric falls, that you just doesn't feel like it sits right.
Yeah.
Every time I heard it, it was just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
It would pull me out.
Yeah.
Of the sort of experience of listening. But yeah, I did, I liked it when it got into the chorus. and it felt more like Taylor doing her thing in the chorus. You know, the big vocals. Yeah, I did feel more on vibes with that. But
And I like the storytelling, and I think it's rumored. She doesn't talk about who these songs are about, but this kind of is rumored to be about her relationship with Harry Styles, and
right,
that kind of media spotlight, and
yeah, sure,
you can't. She obviously talks about very personal experiences through her music, and particularly on this album. And again, I understand why that draws people into her world. She's good at that, and people obsessing over the meaning that she has.
Yeah, I gave it 5 Paul Smiths.
Oh, well, I gave it 6.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then we get to Clean, the final track on the album.
Yeah.
I really like this.
Well, a bit of Imogen Heap.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Help on this. She was
cool.
keen to work with Imogen Heap, and went and recorded this with her. And there's again an interesting video part of that. I think maybe the Grammy documentary shows Imogen Heap playing some interesting percussion instruments on this track. Yeah.
We've got more up bass, more arpeggiated bass. Yeah, I really like the melody. I really like it as an outro for where the journey that she's taken us on. I think it's a really fitting exit to this album.
Exactly what I put.
And that there's a bit of a tail on the end of the track as well, where it just kind of lets you sit. The track's called Clean, and it does feel almost like you're in a sort of body of water, and just sort of at the end it feels like you can just sort of drift and come down from the sort of journey that you've been on. I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah,
to coin a phrase.
Yeah,
it's really great.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, me too. And as you say, a great way to kind of finish the album. I think the album, they're kind of obvious, really. Yeah, that kind of Welcome to New York is a great opener for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. Clean is a great finisher for obvious reasons. Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with being kind of obvious and clear in your messages. Yeah. And she absolutely pulls that off.
So we're here at the end of the episode for The Long Play. So what you can do is you can come and join us. You can find us on Instagram at The Long Play Pod. You can find us on the website at
thelongplay.uk.
Thanks very much for that save. And then, do sign up to the emails if you'd like to get the mid-month missives.
Yeah, that'll all be in the show notes.
I have to say, Paulie's really knocking it out of the park with the articles and videos and info that he's sharing. So, do make sure you do that.
And we haven't closed, as of recording, we haven't closed next month's poll. It might have closed by the time this is out, but you jump on into the show notes and you might find the poll still open for August's album, and there's 5 goodies there to choose from. So.
Yeah, let us know what we're going to be listening to next month.
Yeah,
but thanks so much for being here and listening along. We're going to be walking into album 5 next month, which is kind of mad.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what we're going to be doing next month.
Any of those 5 that are on the poll, I'm excited about. So
good.
Let's. Look forward to telling you all about it in the intro episode that'll be out at the start of
And there might be something special coming soon. We're dreaming up something, a little sort of standalone episode. So we'll be sure to let you know about that one.
We are indeed.
But in the meantime,
no skippling.
That's staying in.
Oh, no skippling, no shuffing.
Scene.